Good morning and welcome everyone to today's episode of Behind the Screen, episode 78. We're going to wrap up, and I apologize that it's taken so long to get through this. We're going to wrap up our discussion on near future science fiction. And as always, we're going to end with the experience. What is the quintessential experience we're trying to replicate for our players and our table, and how do we do that? Now, again, most of the games we discussed in the first episode of this are great for that. They offer that sort of near future feel. And the first thing I think we want to make sure that we stress to our characters is this idea that it's not that far out of reach. Good morning, Professor. Thank you so much. Bob, good to see you as well. And Grom, good morning. Right, near future science fiction, at least at the start, should never feel too far afield from where we are today. Right, today we're talking about possibly building colonies on Mars, on the moon. These things should feel familiar. Look at the start of The Expanse. There's very little in the start of The Expanse that makes us go, well, that'll never happen. It's this feeling that it is just over our horizon. We have not moved into a idyllic future, a utopian future as of this point. Everything that we still are dealing with today, resource shortages, wars, rumors of wars, exploitation of people, those haven't been solved in The Expanse. They're not solved in Traveler. They're not solved in near future science fiction. Rook, good to see you this morning, as well as Padre. So we want those things front and center. We want it not to feel too far removed from our own world. Another near future science fiction book that I thought of is Rejoice, A Knife to the Heart by Steven Erikson, the guy who did the Malazan series. It is near future in a very bizarre way, in that they think aliens show up because suddenly no one is able to take a violent action against another human. What is the social ramifications, right? Social science fiction really kind of is near future as well. Think of the short story that Minority Report is based off of, right? What if our statistical and predictive analysis and kind of our data trends that we use to profile regions and the types of people who take crimes are taken to that ultimate extreme? I mean, we saw this in Winter Soldier from Captain America. So the idea is to take something that is within reach, or something that we're dealing with now, and in a very respectful way. I'm looking at several game companies who recently have been dissolved because they didn't do this. Look at these issues and trends in a sort of removed from our current time. You may have heard me mention the idea of don't look at the Medusa. This like in their Grimdark episode. This is a way to provide a mirror to some of the things we're dealing with now, but in a reflected way that allows us to actually have the time and the space and the distance to analyze these things when they're happening in our world right now. They're too real, they're too near to deal with. Another thing that I like about near future science fiction is at the table, because of the time and the space distance, one of the ways to really stress this to your players is, I'm going to go to Alien, which we referenced earlier, the shock of being awakened from cryosleep with no context as to what is going on. Why is the alarm blaring? Where are you at? What messages are you receiving that are probably already outdated, and maybe even new messages are updating? I think this is a great way to start a campaign with a bang. The idea that you create your characters, you set out the story, you give them the initial framework, and then you start in the middle of a crisis where they're being woken up from cryosleep, maybe hundreds of light years away from where they thought they were going to be. It immediately creates drama, it immediately creates tension, and you have an immediate mystery or problem for the players to solve. It focuses the group, it gets them immediately engaged with the story, and allows you to build out from there. Again, things shouldn't feel too strange or unusual. Sort of like when we talked about low fantasy, and I said there's a lot of overlap here. You're not necessarily going for the wondrous in the way of like space opera, where look at this strange alien, look at this strange technology, look at this weird artifact that does X, Y, and Z. You're going for the familiar, and once you've established the familiar, that's when you start breaking out and saying, here's how it's different. Yes, Restart, exactly. The discomfort of blinding newness and lack of information. Concussive weapons, Rook. Yes, when you say concussive weapons, are we talking about like ballistics? Are we talking about big metal pipes that inflict, bludgeoning damage? Either way, yes. Yes, Restart. The beginning of Mist is another good one. Although that, man, I don't even know what I would qualify Mist as. Some bizarre fantasy steampunk? I love that game. I've played all of Mist. I think and I've read several of the books. I think the rest of them did not engage me in the same way that the original one did. Anyway, that's a digression. So these are things that we're going to want to stress. And then I think the final thing when I sit down, also have familiar touchstones, right? Because things are going to be set on Earth, because things are going to be set in the near future, things should feel familiar, right? In the Expanse, yes, we have colonies on Mars, the Martian colonies have broken away. Yes, we have cities on Luna. Yes, we have the Belt and Io and all of these other places. But one of our first touchstones is the UN on Earth. That's a familiar thing. And then you find out that the UN is actually the global government, and that's kind of the shock, the refocusing. Ooh. Interesting, Rook. Yeah, I like those weapons a lot. Rook and I were having an interesting discussion on Sanderson yesterday, which we may save for another discussion. But I think he managed to reframe Sanderson in a way that I don't necessarily have as many problems with, which I appreciate that, Rook. I enjoy our discussions. So the last thing that I really want to stress is near future, as we talked. I love the word liminal, right? The space of change. It's a liminal space. Things are in transition. Things are moving. Near science fiction is almost always a stepping stone to... That's one way to look at it, Rook. You did win on that point. I will give you that. A stepping stone into something new. Take The Expanse. I'm going to spoil The Expanse. If you are in the middle of the series that ended last year or the year before, you may want to skip to the end of this video. But the near future familiarity of The Expanse paves the way for the oddness of the proto-molecule and everything that follows after that. The idea that here we are, we're kind of getting our feet. Now here's this strange thing that leads to the gate system and humanity's expanse into the greater galaxy. So this is key, I think, to me, to really nailing that near future feel. You don't want the status quo at the start of the game to be the status quo at the end of the game. Whether that is where humanity is at, whether that is what is going on with our political, our wars, our other thing, but also because I think that one of the great things about near future sci-fi is it allows us to eventually encounter something so fantastic, so strange, so unexpected, that most times it's a eucatastrophe, and humanity manages to rally together and embrace this change in a way that allows us to set aside some of our petty differences. Take the Star Trek movie First Contact. We're moving into space opera next, but I figured I would get my love of Star Trek in here. The parts of First Contact that take place in the past are the new future setting of that we're kind of talking about here. We have the wars with new technology. We have scientists and it looks as if it is humanity's darkest day. And, Zefram Cochrane makes the first warp flight, and we think that that's going to be it. But it's that one act, that one piece of near future technology shift that enables first contact with the Vulcans and is the eucatastrophic event that transforms Earth. It's also why, on a side digression, I'm not a fan of more modern Star Trek, because it loses that hopeful view of our future where our better natures, our better angels actually speak to us, and maybe we can become better than we are. So that is kind of our end of near future science fiction. I look at near future. It's a weird genre. It's a very niche genre, and I think almost always it's a transformative genre. I think the best near future pieces are usually Philip K. Dick writing a short story about how this one thing has changed everything. Blade Runner. What if we had androids? I should say for Philip K. Dick, do androids dream of electric sheep? We have things like Through a Scanner Darkly. Things like this, where we get this weird change that then facilitates a larger change, a small change in technology that facilitates a larger change in humanity. Another moment from The Expanse is that moment where the drive that actually allows greater speeds, that kind of shrinks the solar system for humanity. That's a moment that happens before, obviously, the books start. We get that one episode in the show where we see the point of view of the guy inventing the drive that essentially opens up even more of the solar system. Black Mirror is an interesting look at near future. I think some of them do take place in the near future. I think some of them are also dark fantasy. I think some of them are also just straight up horror. But there are some really good episodes of near future in Black Mirror, and also in shows like Star Trek in the original series, The Orville, where the space opera setting comes to a planet where that planet is in the transition from who they were to the larger world, or the larger galaxy and universe. And so therefore they see this kind of new future stepping stones as points along their own history, and they can kind of see what's coming down. Good luck, Padre, in helping somebody make a new Tord character. That's awesome. Hopefully they enjoy it. I haven't watched a lot of Black Mirror. The one I really want to see, Professor, is the Choose Your Own Adventure one that they put on Netflix, where you actually, with your remote, are able to wind your way through a Choose Your Own story that is also about a Choose Your Own Adventure novel that is being adapted into a video game. I forget the name of that one. Is it Jabberwocky? I think that's it. Our producer JD, I believe, loved that one. Really loved that one, but not as much as she loves the wonderful Babylon 5. JD, I appreciate that you keep this love for Babylon 5 burning here at Iconic Production. Jabberwock. I assume from Rook and Bob's reaction that it's worth engaging with and enjoying. Speaking of Bob, I'm not going to speak too much about this, but there may be some changes coming to the Iconic Production Patreon at some point in the future, and hopefully hopefully we'll have some pleasant surprises for our Patreon backers. So just keep an eye out for that. So last but not least, I can just say thank you everybody who's been so supportive of the Space 1889 Kickstarter. We do have physical books now available. There's a little bit of a kerfuffle. I apologize for that. That was just something new we were able to add. We have something else new that we're going to be adding to the Space 1889 Kickstarter today or tomorrow as an add-on that I think may excite a lot of people. Excuse me. So we will be back on Tuesday. We're going to talk about space opera. I just need to get some space opera out of my system. Then we're going to go to space fantasy, which is the genre that I think Rook rather eloquently argued for placing a lot of Sanderson's work in, and I appreciated that, Rook, a lot. Thank you for that. So we'll be back on Tuesday with more space opera news. We're going to be back on Saturday with Exploring Glorantha. We're looking at the Gracelands, or if you were on the Discord, it was referred to as the Gracelands. I don't know. I mean, Elvis does apparently appear in Glorantha as the some view the Red Emperor as Elvis. Well, yeah, we'll see. So we'll be back next week with more great iconic production material with Exploring Glorantha, Behind the Screen, and then we're going to be starting our Space 1889 playtest. I'm really excited about that. So thank you to everyone who stopped by. I enjoy doing these shows. I really enjoy interacting with you guys on the chat. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing, sharing these videos, and if you are not, consider joining the Iconic Patronage. We have a lot of great bonuses, behind the scenes stuff, available only for our patrons. Oh, I forgot to mention, you should also tune in Sunday night, where myself, Becca, and Mark will be doing the Iconic podcast along with our very own Rook and Phantom, and we will be doing a playthrough of a small Night's Black Agents adventure. So, yes, Bob, I agree. Back the Space 1889 Kickstarter. I greatly appreciate that. We're going to keep moving forward with it and learning a lot of things. I am now currently aging in Kickstarter years, which, as Bob will tell you, being the person behind the scenes on a Kickstarter is possibly the most stressful thing I have ever done in my life. So, you know, there you are. Rook! Oh, man. Rook, thank you so much for your generosity, as always. And I look forward to hanging out with all of you more on the channel, on the stream, and as often as we can gaming together. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. This is Behind the Screen. I am JM, and this has been an Iconic production. Have a good one.